Rolling.
Merry Christmas, bitchachos. Sweet Tea here. And this week I am going to be running down my top 5 favorite Christmas movies. If you care to share your top 5 or comment on the list you're about to hear, you may do so on Facebook, Instagram, or wherever podcasts are available by searching for the Catch the Sky podcast. You may also find me on Twitter while it's still standing at CTS Terry. I am dickless again this week, but I hope you enjoy what I've got in store. Let's get right into it with number 5 on my list, A Christmas Story. This might rank a little bit higher on yours, but it just barely made my list. It is very funny. It's a good movie. Definitely ranks higher on Rotten Tomatoes, that's for sure. Released in 1983, the movie is actually filmed in Cleveland, which is a short drive down the road from where I'm currently living in Erie, Pennsylvania. You may have seen in the news recently that the current owner of that home in which the movie was filmed got into a verbal altercation with one of the actors from the film while he was taking pictures out in front of the house. So that's a great look, Cleveland. It's obviously iconic not only for the many quotes, but the leg lamp, the bunny suit, the dogs, the scene where he triple dog dares him and his tongue is stuck to the pole. There's a few scenes that are a little culturally inappropriate these days, but all in all, it's a timeless Christmas film, and there's a reason that TBS continues to play it nonstop every year. Coming in at number 4 on my list is It's a Wonderful Life. Released in 1946, this black and white film is probably one of the most timeless Christmas films that there is. If we're talking about the Christmas Story being played on repeat every year, if It's a Wonderful Life is still getting played, 70 years later, it's doing something right. The premise of the story is a gentleman basically is down on his luck and wishes that he had never been born. And for Christmas, he gets to see what his life and the life of a lot of people he knows would be like without him. And long story short, he's changing his tune by the end of the film. So number 4 on my list, It's a Wonderful Life. Coming in at number 3, might be a surprise to some of you, but this is where I put Gremlins. Yes, the story of the Mogwai from the Far East, given as a Christmas gift to young Billy by his father, who has been absent due to an overwhelming amount of work. So there's some rules that come with the Mogwai, or the Gremlins as we call them. Can't feed them after midnight, don't get them wet, and do not expose them to light. So over the course of the film, you of course see what happens if any of these rules are broken, and chaos ensues. Some people call it a comedy, some people call it a horror film. I call it the 3rd best Christmas film of all time. Number 2 on my list is a 2-for-1. I don't like to use a movie and its sequel as 2 different spots on the list. So in this spot, I put Home Alone and Home Alone 2. Anything after that, I do not recognize as part of this franchise. So Home Alone and Home Alone 2 obviously are all about Kevin McAllister being separated from his family while they attempt to travel at Christmas time. In the first film, he is left at home. In the second one, he gets separated from them at the airport, and he ends up in New York while they're in Florida. In both films, he is tasked with outsmarting the wet bandits, Harry and Marv, And he successfully does so in a number of hilarious ways. I'll never forget the scream that Marv lets out when he jumps barefoot through the window onto the ornaments. It's not the funniest thing that happens throughout the couple films, but that scream is absolutely hilarious. And one of my favorite things about the second film is that when they show it on TV, they show Kevin throwing a brick. Usually just a singular brick, sometimes two. Regardless, they cut out the 3 or 4 others that he hurls at Marv's face, but the next scene shows his face with multiple brick imprints on it. So he throws one brick, but somehow ends up with like 6 brick marks on his face. So I always got a kick out of that. One additional note before we move on. Somehow this movie was ranked number 73 out of 100 on Rotten Tomatoes' top 100 Christmas films as of this year. The fuck's that all about? Before we get to number 1 on my list, I would like to go through some honorable mentions. A lot of people told me that they enjoyed The Grinch in one of its many forms. There is the live action one, the more recent animated one, and the 1967 classic by Dr. Seuss. National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation made the honorable mentions. To be perfectly honest, didn't see this one as much as the other ones. Definitely have seen it a couple of times. Think it's funny. Just didn't take away as much from it as I did the other films. These next 2 are more personal nostalgia picks. So the first being A Charlie Brown Christmas, the Peanuts Christmas special from 1965. I believe you can get it on Peacock now or some bullshit like that. I know people are all up in arms about it. But my father was a big fan of the Peanuts, and so we always watched all of their various specials, the Great Pumpkin, the Thanksgiving one, etc. This next one, though, is just, it killed me to leave it off the list. Maybe I should make it a top 6 list. But the Muppets Christmas Carol is absolutely hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. It's well done. It's a great take on it, but it's the Muppets spin on it. It's fun. It's great for kids, but adults can still get a pretty good chuckle out of the Muppets Christmas Carol. So those are my nostalgia picks. And drum roll, please. My number 1 favorite Christmas movie, you may have guessed, A Nightmare Before Christmas. So while the claymation style in which it was filmed is not necessarily groundbreaking, there's many other Christmas films such as Santa Claus is Coming to Town, Rudolph, What the Little Drummer Boy. Those are all claymation movies that didn't make my list, but A Nightmare Before Christmas is on a different level. It's one of the most fantastic films just in general. And not only is it a claymation movie, it's also a musical. So the fact that it's able to pull off all of these things that are so different that we don't usually see in a film and put them all together successfully, it's just a work of art. And I believe that's one of the reasons that it has stood the test of time so far, being released in 1993 by Tim Burton. So I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. Let me know what your favorite Christmas movie is. You may find me on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts by searching for the Catch the Sky podcast. You may find me on Twitter at CTS Terry. Thank you for listening. Happy holidays to our beautiful listeners all over the world. And until next week, keep trying to catch the sky.